Welcome to an instant reaction edition of Andy and Ari on 3, presented by BetMGM. We are here at snowy Michigan Stadium. The snow is blowing outside, Ari. Blowing.
What I got here?
Oh, hoodie, puffer.
Yeah. No flag planting. Just wanted to make sure there was no
flag
brawling,
planting.
no
I
pepper
watched
spray.
2 Ohio State players where they jumped up on the wall where the Ohio State fans were and kind of sat. It was like a Lambeau Leap kind of thing. Kind of sat there and celebrated with them. The Ohio flags brought out, but there was no pepper spray. No, just a breaking of the streak, a clean break, as it were.
Yeah, Andy, it's funny because we're going to break this game down here for a few minutes. But isn't this game just kind of go the way like we thought last year's would go?
Yes.
Like it was like when you break down the two teams, what their strengths are, what their abilities are. You know, Michigan last year certainly was limited from an offensive standpoint, but even so, this year they were better, but they weren't great.
Well, they couldn't limit Ohio State, and I think last year we talked to some people before this game, and maybe with Ohio State, it was as simple as Will Howard was not quite right for that game. And so the game plan had to be not throwing as much. Julian Sain, obviously, very much right for this game. And the thing is, if you're Michigan, you're not that far away, but you're not as good as them offensively. You don't have the weapons that they have offensively. You don't need to have Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate.
Yeah.
But you do have to have more functional receivers. And I wrote a column about that for On 3. There's a play in the first quarter where Ohio State is losing 6-3. Michigan's still up. Michigan has driven for a field goal. They got the interception. They kick another field goal. They have a goal line stand, hold Ohio State to a field goal. They get the ball back. They have a 2nd and 5 play. Bryce Underwood scrambles or carries for 0 yards. There's a hold on the H-back. And they announce it on TV. You see the referee announce the penalty. The TV broadcast missed this, but they announced it in the stadium that Ohio State was declining the penalty. And I remember immediately going, the disrespect. But it is basically, instead of 2nd and 15, it's going to be 3rd and 5. And that is Ryan Day looking across the sideline at Sharon Moore and saying, you do not have the dudes to get these 5 yards. You don't.
Yeah.
And everybody in the stadium knows it. And everybody did. Everybody did know it. And guess what?
Yeah.
They gained 1 yard on a scramble because nobody was open. Bryce Underwood scrambles 1 yard. That was the game right there. It was over after that.
Do you know how many yards Michigan rushed for in the second half?
It was it single digits?
It was 0.
Oh, it was 0. Okay.
So you talk about.
By the way, the team that run for more yards still won the game.
Yeah, it's funny the stat held through, but I think that the hard thing about trying to break this game down in the past years is like what we saw down there between the athlete level, what you just described, what Ohio State had from a passing attack, even in the snow, that it was hard to envision a game where Michigan overcame that. And for the first quarter, it felt like they were about to do it again. Ohio State had a turnover on the second
they were making
offensive play.
mistakes. Yeah,
they were up 6-0. Maybe if they would have scored a touchdown at the beginning of the game, they might have made it, kind of one of those slog type games.
As soon as Ohio State got the ball back, the next thing that happened was that, the quarter flips. It's the early second quarter. Ohio State has a 4th and 5 in kind of 4-down territory, in Michigan territory, and they throw a 35-yard touchdown pass to Jeremiah Smith. It was beautiful, just right in the bucket throw. And look, I'm not saying go find a corner who can cover Jeremiah Smith one-on-one, because that person doesn't exist. What I'm saying is if Michigan has more effective receivers, then instead of this game being what it was, what was the final score? 27-9. 27-9.
And 6 of those points came on the first 2 possessions.
You need to be playing a 30-27 game. You need to be playing a 29-27 game. That's the kind of game you need to be playing to beat these guys, because you can't rely on them having a fakakta game plan like they had last year.
The one thing that's also kind of stood out and kind of has been forgotten the last few years as Michigan took back the rivalry was that they were beating one of the best teams and programs in college football. Like, it wasn't like Ohio State was broken. They were beating them in spite of it.
And the last time the game was here in 2023, I was at this game. Michigan was the better team. Athlete for athlete, Michigan was better. It can be, again, it can be that, or it can be equal. And that's why I think, Michigan fans are going to be really down after this game, because they're going to be frustrated by the way it went. They're going to be frustrated the streak got broken. They're going to be frustrated it was broken in such an emphatic way. But here's the thing. You came to this game 9-2. You had a chance to make the college football playoff if you pulled off an upset. You are better than you were last year. I wrote after last year's game that this would be the worst Michigan, the 2024 team would be the worst Michigan team that Ohio State saw for a while. That's still true. this team was better than that team.
Mm-hmm.
This team can get better, and it's not that far away because you had tailback injuries, you had offensive line injuries. Like Michigan's offense can be effective, and the team that I think Michigan should kind of look at as inspiration is Texas A&M.
Yeah,
because think about Marcel Reed this time last year. Marcel Reed this time last year and Bryce Underwood right now, kind of the same.
Yeah.
But if you added a Casey Concepcion and a Mario Craver to the mix with Andrew Marsh already here, all of a sudden, that's an effective passing game. You're going to have a decent running game. There is hope.
Yeah. Well, we spent the first 6 minutes talking about Michigan. Let's talk about some feelings now.
Okay.
For Ohio State, what does this mean for Ryan Day? He's a national champion last year. I know in the new era of the sport, we've lost track a little bit, at least some of us, of how important rivalries are. But to come into the big house and get a win, convincingly out-athlete the team, like, what do you say negatively about him at this point?
Nothing.
And like, did Ohio State just claim back a big piece of their reputation that, really works in their favor when you start talking about who the best program in college football is?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, we've talked about this on the show a bunch. This game matters. Even though there's a playoff, even though Ohio State won the national championship after losing it last year, this game matters deeply to both programs. It is very important to Ohio State that they have won this game, that there is no longer a countdown clock of days since Ohio State beat Michigan. It's reset.
Yeah.
And that is just a huge thing for Ryan Day, because this time last year, we were talking about whether he should keep his job.
He had a security detail out in front of his house.
Think about how stupid that was.
A year-over-year restoration of a person's reputation. And obviously a lot of that, came back in the, 6 weeks, 2 months after they lost this game a year ago, but you still had that hanging over your head. We were in Las Vegas at the beginning of the year, Andy, and I don't know if you heard this, but they had the breakout sessions at the Mandalay Bay, and Ryan Day was up at the podium, and a reporter asked, how do you beat Michigan? Like, that was still a thing. And I don't know if people who aren't a part of this rivalry understand the depths to which this matters to both teams.
Yes.
So even though they won the national championship, everyone's like, oh, you won the title. What are you crying about? Like, this is an important victory for his sanity, his program build, the Ohio State's reputation, everything. Like, I think that you can understate enough as Ohio State's going to Indianapolis now for the first time. And when's the last time they played in Indy? I can't even remember.
I know.
Was it 2019?
Yeah.
Isn't that insane?
No, they played in 2020. They played in that
they
one.
Still had a game in that year doesn't count for
that
me
was Northwestern, I believe.
Yeah. So 2020, the year they didn't play Michigan, but if you would have told me at any point during the Urban Meyer era that Ohio State would go 5 years without playing in Indianapolis, I'd be like, that's impossible. So they're going back to Indy. They have this game.
That's going to be a fun game. Indiana, Ohio State.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
And I think that, for the most part, that'll be for seeding, obviously, and obviously Big Ten, supremacy. But I do think that, like, Ryan Day claimed back a little bit of who, like, I'm going to write this.
Yeah.
That he claimed back a little bit of who he is today, if not all of it.
It is all of it. Because what can you say negatively about Ryan Day?
They recruit better. They use NIL better. They retain better. They win better.
They just won a national championship. They're going to be the one seed if they can beat Indiana.
Which program in college football, I'll challenge you to right now, is in a healthier position than Ohio State right now?
There isn't one. There's not one.
And it's really interesting because my background is covering this team, and I've covered this team now for a long time. They've never been in a position where you could say that. Even when they were winning, maybe after 2014,
Georgia, there was an Alabama.
There was always a Clemson, an Alabama, a Georgia that would be like, hey, excuse me for a second when you ask that question. And I wonder now if Ohio State's program is one of the best situated in the country from a location standpoint, a financial standpoint, an administrative buy-in standpoint,
they
a
were
coaching
always
standpoint.
One of them.
Now they were never the team.
The one, yeah. They're number
even
one.
in 2014, like when they won the national championship, not that it matters, but the Alabama team that they beat on the way to that wasn't peak Bama. No. And like Bama never went away. And then Clemson came into the picture. Georgia emerged as a national power who won, 2 national championships. Like, it's never been cut and dry.
It's definitely Ohio State's turn right now.
And I don't know if you think that Ohio State has to win the national championship to really put a hammer on that.
They don't, but it would certainly help.
But I'm at the point right now where I'm watching this team, and maybe this will be different when we're in Nashville next week watching it. But if Ohio State doesn't win the national title, who is going to? Like, who out there right now belongs in the same field as that team?
That is what the argument is going to be probably going into the playoff is Ohio State of the field. Now, perhaps after they play Indiana, we'll feel
lot can
differently
change in
about
a
that.
week. Yep.
But the way it looks now, that argument, that sports talk radio discussion will be Ohio State versus the field.
And the hardest thing too, is that they're assuming they beat Indiana, and I don't know if that's an assumption you can make. I think that they probably will. I don't know, but everybody who plays them is going to be playing them in the dome now.
Yeah,
like getting them in the elements and like letting them play in a clean, crisp environment. Like playing Ohio State in the dome is harder than playing them on the field like that.
It looks white out there. It's not a camera trick.
Yeah,
like that's snow.
The snow that Andy's going to have to try to traverse on the way back.
Yeah,
but I think it was a cathartic victory. There was a drive at the end of the game where Ohio State went on like a 12-13 play drive where they ran it. I think 8 out of the 13 plays or 9 out of 13 plays. They didn't allow Michigan to run at all in the second half. Michigan looked completely overmatched when trying to throw the ball when a deficit. I think it was a beatdown in a way that, you kind of anticipated the last 4 years. And I think Ohio State's in a pretty healthy position. So if you're an Ohio State fan, it's been a long half of a decade, but pour an extra drink for yourself tonight and enjoy it. And Michigan, the way you put it, Andy, too, like
it's
a
not
few moves away from being back in this game next year. And, we'll probably be right back in Columbus next year at this time talking about it. But
let's talk big picture now, because Michigan losing changes the big picture a little bit, because it does take away a bid thief situation. And let's check the score right now of the
which game? I know them.
BYU and
BYU is winning by double digits.
Okay, so BYU is going to win that game. If BYU and Texas Tech, maybe Texas Tech beats BYU and BYU gets in as an at-large, but probably if BYU beats Texas Tech, they definitely both get in.
The Big 12 is an interesting thing to look at. I think the other thing we have to acknowledge, because it's my DNA at this point, is Miami is beating or will beat Pitt by more than Notre Dame did. So that's another thing that you have to kind of take into account, I think. I don't know if it matters or not, but nothing shocking yet, which means that when we get back to the MGM tonight, if we get back there in this weather,
it is.
Auburn is contractually obligated to win that game because nothing crazy has happened. So, stick around for the Iron Bowl. I got to get down for the interviews here, Andy.
Yep.
But it was a fun game, fun day, and keep us safe on the way home.
Yep.
Okay?
We will talk to you again after the afternoon games.
Upper.